Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. Let's get started with our guest today. Our first question in a few sentences. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me. My name is Max Montrey. I am the CEO and co-founder of SportsTrace. And at SportsTrace, we deliver AI video automation that helps athletes and coaches succeed.
Wow, very interesting. Question number 2, what's the best thing about working with a team?
Kind of that camaraderie, how you can build on one another's strengths, how you can complement and supplement one another along the way. It's that daily interaction, working as a group to get more done than you could as individuals.
Great insight and perspective on how to use teams effectively. Question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell me your thoughts.
It's true, especially now during the time of coronavirus. It's particularly difficult. However, based on my experience, I had a lot of opportunity to work with distributed teams. So we started SportsTrace out as a distributed team. Some of the difficulties can be, I would say, getting past the day-to-day, the things that you necessarily need to do, but working on actual team building exercise, making sure that individuals are heard, cared for, and that you're still continuing to work on personal development, skills growth, and other, I would say, non-essential things to the core business, but essential to actually having a team.
I really like that perspective because you're right. There's more to having engagement than just making sure they're getting the work done. You mentioned personal development and other aspects that help complete us as people. And when you're distributed, as you put it, it makes it a little bit harder. So you do have to take a little bit more of an aggressive approach to make sure that you're keeping up with your people. So great comments. I really like those. Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for leaders of teams?
So necessarily taking the time out to have those types of exercises, put dedicated time on your calendar as a group to do team building exercises, as a group to do personal development so people can share their experiences and stories. It's a tactic and it's a methodology that I started when I was managing individuals at Microsoft that I've carried over to SportsTrace. You can even have other individuals actually participate as well, but don't necessarily limit that strictly to those group exercises. You may have a variety of different personality types where people don't necessarily want to contribute to those exercises in the group, but they still need those experiences. So find alternative methods for them to get you that information, for them to receive that instruction and opportunity to learn.
Those are great ideas. Thank you for sharing those, because that is really an important aspect of how to help people, is to give everybody that opportunity. I really like that. Question number 5, what other successful leaders of teams would you like to recognize that have had a positive influence in your life?
Wow, that's a big question. So I feel extremely fortunate to have had great managers throughout my career. And I would say that it's not necessarily relegated in terms of leaders of teams to be in the managerial position. It's a mantra that I've necessarily lived by myself. Every single individual is a leader and can contribute to the overall impact of the team. If you carry yourself that way, then when you get those opportunities, if you'd like to manage, if you'd like to be a team lead, then you're already in a position to help yourself succeed. My shout out again would be to every manager I've ever had.
That's fair. I appreciate that. Last question. Tell us about your first job.
Let me ask a qualifier there because I saw this question before. Is it my first real job or first job ever?
We've got a couple of minutes. I'd love to hear about both if you're open to it.
So a lot of people, when they're growing up in high school, I'll go with first job ever to start with. A lot of people in high school, they get the opportunity to do some jobs behind the counter, serving people in retail, et cetera. I didn't necessarily take that easy part. My first 2 jobs happened concurrently. I was doing construction while delivering beer as a 17-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So construction and beer delivery, huh?
Yeah. So there was, there was a fair amount of heavy lifting,
Yeah.
and learning how to take orders.
So what was the first real job that I guess you'd say?
Whew. I'll put it as I had an opportunity right after college to get a job down at the border of Mexico, and I was helping to run a business internally. I do a lot of the coordination. I would do a lot of the management of the shipping and receiving, and just essential ordering. One of the things that I'd seen was they didn't necessarily have the most optimal processes, and that software could help. And it was really where I'd gotten back into creating software, which is my job today.
Mm.
I took it on my own accord to create some of that software in my own time so that I could actually help streamline a lot of the processes, and so that I had a little more time to myself, to be perfectly honest. It was a little self-serving, but I think it was good overall for the business.
Mm. That's really interesting. You know, you mentioned something about becoming an entrepreneur. I heard somewhere that entrepreneurs are essentially, they drop into one of two categories. They're either lazy or they're selfish, or both. So,
I pride myself on my laziness, Sean. So I say all
well,
the time, I'm lazy. I would like to write a lot of lines of code to make this easier so I don't ever have to do it again. So
yeah.
absolutely lazy. You nailed it right there.
Well, you know, I think there's certain reasons why we might want to be selfish in the entrepreneurial world, but in many cases, in fact, with rare exception in my experience, the entrepreneurs that I've worked with have been some of the most selfless people that I've ever. They're obviously in it to try and take care of their own needs, but they are
Sure.
such great givers and give backers that they're just fantastic people. So it's more of a joke, but there's some little kernels of truth in it, aren't there?
Yeah.
Well, Max, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about how people can find you.
Sure. Please feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm very open with networking. Obviously, we have a lot of time to do that right now with the world being primarily virtual, but yeah, hit me up there. Then we can connect and learn more about one another.
Sounds great. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can find us on the internet by going to teamengagementpodcast.com. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.